Taylor.
Hi, Pete. That was a probably difficult decision to pull Jake after those first 2 goals. Can you kind of just talk us through the reasoning behind it and what your messaging to the team was when you called that timeout?
Well, anytime you pull a goalie, there's the reasoning's always to try and spark your group. So that was the number one reason. We had talked endlessly in this series about trying to play with the lead, and obviously we were in a 2-0 hole right away. And you know what? I didn't take that lightly, and I didn't blame it all on Jake. But the reality is if you go back to last year's playoffs, he's lost 6 of 7 games to Edmonton, and we gave up 2 shots on 2 goals in an elimination game. So, it was partly to spark our team and wake them up, and partly, knowing that, status quo had not been working, and that's a pretty big sample size.
Left side, second row, Tim.
Yeah, Pete, is there a part of you with this suddenly over that you're a little bit stunned at how this 4 games in a row went?
Yeah, I think so. It's a good question. I think, I'll tell you what I told our group. I think it's possible to be 2 things at the same time. I'm really proud of the resiliency of our group through the first 2 rounds. We scratched and clawed and found a way to beat 2 really good teams. And I'm also disappointed, that we didn't find another level, another gear here, another way. Getting back here to this point, how hard it is to get back here again. And so, I would say I'm both those things, and that's. I think that's okay, and I think our group needs to go and, coaches, players, and reflect in the summer on what we can do better when we get to this point against the best teams. But there's no doubt the 2 best teams are playing, for the cup.
Left side, third row, Ryan.
Pete, you look at the over here.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, you look at the situation you're in where you're very much in a championship window. You've advanced to 3 straight conference finals, but yet you don't go to the cup final. So how do you sort of reconcile the place where you guys are in as a franchise, knowing like you're where you want to be, but you're just not exactly where you want to be?
Well, you got to keep knocking on the door. Listen, the examples are endless in this league. The Washington Capitals, a decade of knocking on the door. On and on. So it's a really, really hard league to win in. And when you get down to the end of the Final Four here, it gets exponentially tougher. And, all your weaknesses get exposed. And you know what? I give our guys credit. I thought we fought, again, we chased every single game in this series. And that's a tough way to play hockey against that team because, it was a story of the entire series, but their 4th goal, Connor's goal, we're pushing to try and get back in the game, and, puck bounces into the neutral zone. He's coming off the bench, and he's not missing that. It's game over.
Left side, front row, Robert.
Hey, Pete.
Robert.
Hey, it's kind of an unfair question, but how do you explain a start like that in an elimination game where you're kind of looking to see everyone empty the tank right off the bat, and then you start like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I think we got to look, in our room and at our group, but we didn't roll over. I think that's the good news. The start obviously wasn't good enough, but we didn't roll over. You look at the playoff trail. There's a lot of teams that would have lost that game going away. We worked right to the end.
Right side, front row.
Pete, when you look at the way that you then bounced back after the rough start, how do you, when you evaluate the game in its totality, how do you make sense of the way that you did start against the fact that they were able to then find a much different level?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. It's a little bit of our the reflection we'll have to do as a group. It's been a group, that always kind of needs to get pushed up against the wall before, we come out swinging. In my mind, that I felt that's kind of always been a little bit of the case. So, it bit us tonight.
We'll take a few more. Left side, second row.
Hey, Pete, when it comes to starting strong, where's kind of the line on where that's the responsibility of coaches and where that's the responsibility of players?
Oh, I think it's on everybody, Listen, we couldn't have started stronger than we did last game, and I don't think our starts have been crazy bad. We haven't capitalized on our chances, and we've given up the first goal every game in the series. So that's on. There's a lot of things in there. It's not as easy as, well, the guys aren't ready to play. I don't think that's the case. I think it's a lot of things. I mean, tonight, you stick a young guy in there, he takes a penalty. That's not on him. We got to get a kill there. We got to get a save. You got to get something.
Two more. Left side, fourth row, Jonah.
Hey, Pete. Jeff Kolb, Fox 4. You talk about knocking on the door, being close. How do you feel like this was the best of the three Dallas teams you've had so far, and how close do you feel like you are?
I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it was. Maybe on paper, I'm not sure it was the best team. And I think, I'll have to look at it. But I think the way we ended the season, I think bled into the playoffs a little bit for us. Which I think, still doesn't sit right with me. Although we found a way to get through two really tough teams, that was a little bit of a red flag for me, that it went on that long and the way it went on. But that's stuff I'll have to look back at in the summer. So, your question on paper, it might have been the best team we've had here. I'm not sure it was the best team we've had. I can tell you, on the other side, that Edmonton team is better than the team we played last year. Deeper, defend harder to play against. That's a lot better team than the team we played last year in the conference final.
Right side, fourth row.
Coach, you may have just kind of answered it. About 6 weeks ago, you said that the loss to Vegas was kind of understandable because you thought Vegas was better.
Yeah.
Last year, it's tougher because you thought you were better than Edmonton.
I did, yeah.
I'm guessing you don't feel like you're better than Edmonton this year.
I didn't feel like we were better than Edmonton in this series. I mean, I think it sounds crazy to say with the goals scored and things like that. I think this was a closer series than the numbers are going to say or the 5 games are going to say. But I don't think we were a better team.
Last one, back row on the left, Mark.
Yeah, Pete, I hope it's fair to ask you now that the series is over. You just mentioned Edmonton was a better team than last year. What do you think made them tougher? What made them a better club?
Well, they defend a lot harder. You got 6 veteran defensemen back there. 7 probably, right, with Stetcher when he's in. So, their commitment to defend, and it's not just their defense, but all their best players are defending hard. And then, you also have that game-breaking ability. Their power play killed us in the series, although the special teams were more even than they were last year. And again, I would have liked to have seen if we could have got them in a hole, how they would have responded. We never did. So I don't have that perspective. But, with the lead every game, they were impressive the way they handled that.